that if it was at the end of the end out there, I wouldn't give a shit.
I got it.
God.
I got it.
You
I
did?
got it.
You did? Hey, you! It's Slender.
Oh, whoa, whoa. Just got home again. I did all my chores today. I chopped up a tree that got blown over and it pulled all the roots right up off the ground. Apparently there's too much clay out in the front. So all the roots fan out across this topsoil and they don't go that deep. This great big huge ball went bonk. And I managed to cut the tree off real tight to it and the whole thing fell right perfectly in the hole again. Yes. Did that, limbed it. Did a bunch of other chores. Took Ruby Dog and went up toward Ukilit. Went up another logging road. Ran into nothing but threatening signs. No permission, no access, no this, no that, no nothing. Everywhere you look. Took her for a long walk with the rifle, seeing if there was enough sign of game to entice me to start hunting a particular area, but not yet. It's looking like I'm going to have to go back to my regular haunts. So anyway, everybody's frantic, stressed out in the basement of the house, so I'm sitting here in my safe cave, and I'm going to hang out with you guys for another hour. Meanwhile, my neighbor, super good guy, he's just through the forest right there with his excavator working. Oh well, shouldn't be too loud, right? I think I am the most sensitive person here when it comes to the background noises. Excuse me. So, where do we start? I'm going to start right here with some crazy photos. Iridescent, green, glowing frog / pics included is the title of this email. Pictures attached. Not a Sasquatch, but a iridescent green glowing frog instead. What the hell? Hello, Steve. Big fan of your channel and also a How to Hunt member. I really appreciate you and Sarah. Can't thank you guys enough for what y'all do for your surrounding community, as well as the time you give to the How to Hunt community. I'm Tammy from Tennessee. I never experienced anything like the stories shared on your channel, but I'd be foolish to turn a blind eye to so many truths. And because of these truths, I still consider myself a member of the Club of No Return, even though I'm not really qualified, lol. Is that even a thing? Anywho, wanted to ask if anyone in the How to Hunt family has ever seen and or knows why this frog is glowing in iridescent green when a flashlight was on it. It was about 9 p.m. I went to shut the back door and noticed something small stuck on the outside of the glass door. I could pretty well tell it was a frog by the size and from a light coming from the room next door. And no, I didn't just rip one. Those are my boots rubbing on each other. I know half of my crowd, bunch of smart asses. I could pretty much tell it was a frog by the size and from the light coming from the room next door, but grabbed the flashlight just to check it out. Yep, it was a frog. But when I started to move the flashlight down and away, I noticed a greenish glow throughout its body. I put the light directly on the frog again, and it looked like a regular frog. I moved the flashlight down and away, keeping it pressed against the glass pane, and the iridescent green glow returned. Direct shine equaled a regular looking frog. Indirect shine equaled an iridescent green glowing frog. I was amazed and in awe. But one of those pesky mind files quickly emerged about Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and the creation of the atomic bomb, enriched uranium, during World War II in the 1940s. There's an old saying, ever since the Manhattan Project took place at the Oak Ridge facility in Tennessee back in the 40s, all the frogs have started glowing green. What? This kind of stuff is way over my head, so I need smarter people to break it down if possible. I did do a little bit of research and discovered that radium is a byproduct of decaying uranium and can give off a greenish glow under certain conditions. But then again, I can't begin to imagine that a squeaky clean and transparent government like the US would ever allow poison to seep out of any biohazard containers. Eye roll. So just wondering if anyone has ever actually or accidentally seen this or know anything about it. Sorry, this is out of the How to Hunt wheelhouse. Just didn't know who else to ask. Thanks. Famalam. Tammy from Tennessee. All right. So here's the frog with the flashlight directly on it. All right. Got it. A little closer maybe. Frog with the light directly on it. Frog with the light not quite on it. Check that shit out. That is pretty crazy looking, isn't it? That's wild. That's you sent two, three. Yeah, I sent a few pictures of same glowing. All the parts are still glowing in the same spots. I'll do it. One more. basically got 3 of those photos of the glowing frog. Isn't that crazy? It was pretty cool, though. Almost looks like he walked in something, too, doesn't it? Because on the bottom of his toes and a little bit on his ass. And on his rear legs. Okay, sleuths. Address in the comment section below. Let her rip. There's a lot of intelligent people on this channel, that's for sure. Basically, almost every question we get some kind of answer from somebody who knows, right? I'm sure everyone's seen it, but if you go into the ocean, I'd imagine all the oceans, but I know for sure the Pacific Ocean, the Asian Ocean, Asiatic Ocean? Sorry. Let's see, is that around Thailand? Anyway, I think all the oceans have the, oh, my brain's gonna fart. Iridescent, it's not iridescent, it's the phosphorescence in the ocean. And you can, when you swim, you're leaving a trail, glowing, just a glowing trail, like fairy dust, you know what I mean? It's really, really wild to see. And one time I was in Barkley Sound, anchored up, summer evening, I didn't quite make it out to where I wanted to get before it got real dark. And I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna go into this bay over here and throw the anchor out and sleep. And there's a whale, a humpback whale in there hanging out too, and you could hear a huge herring jumping all over the place, bait everywhere, no wind. So you could hear the herring jumping, and you looked into the ocean, and you could see green glowing streaks, glowing fluorescent. And if you didn't know what it was, you'd probably think it was like aliens swimming around under the boat. But I wonder if that phosphorescence, well, I don't know. I don't think that is similar to what's on the frog. I don't know. Obviously, I don't have the answer. Now, see what comes. Somebody's going to say something. Monster deer stories to us email. I love a good monster deer story. Steve, just saw your story about the monster white-tailed deer. I had a good friend that told me a story about a monster white-tailed deer in Georgia back in the early 70s. Bear in mind that my friend, that is a no-nonsense kind of guy as you are, except on steroids. If he told you something, you had to better believe it. And if you questioned him, he considered you calling him a liar and ready to fight. So, when he told me the story, Atlanta monster white-tailed deer in Georgia, that he shot several times over the years, and it seemed as the bullets bounced off of him because it would take off running like a bat out of hell. He said he tried to track it several times, but found no blood, no blood, tracks, only broken down bushes, and the trail ended, and he never did find the deer, year after year. The deer came back to the same farm, and he would shoot again. The last time he shot at the deer, he was only 50 yards away with a 30-06. He said he saw the bullet go into the side of the deer. But again, the deer ran off like a bat out of hell. He could not understand it. And it's the last time he saw the deer. I made the mistake. I'm asking him, are you sure it wasn't a mule deer and not a white-tailed deer? Indeed, it was a big mistake. Not only did he go off on me and a rant, but he didn't speak to me for months. He passed away about 20 years ago. And I know now, after seeing the white-tailed deer that you shot and hearing your story, I feel bad now that I did not have the chance to apologize because I still do not believe him, knowing that he was a no-nonsense kind of guy. Too late now, I wish I could have said I'm sorry to him. Well, I'm pretty sure you just did. I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. Who's more guilty, somebody calling somebody on something or somebody blowing a hissy fit and acting like a little kid and not talking to you for months on end? No big deal. That is an outrageous story. I've never heard of anything like that happening before in my life. And I think the story you're referring to is that 400-pound whitetail was shot in Alberta and he sucked up a lot of lead. It was so bizarre. Really bizarre. But we got him. And he bled. I have seen some other rare wounds with various game that took a beating and kept on ticking, but they bled. And you could still easily see they're visibly injured. But that story? No. I've never heard anything like that in my life. So here we go again. Audience, what have you guys seen? Everybody had something like that happen? And you're too scared to admit it publicly? Don't be scared. Admit it here. I want to hear about that. Obviously, that might not have been a deer, maybe, possibly, right? Form of a deer, but maybe not really a deer. Crazy. Like the Predator / shapeshifter. Hey Steve, the content you put out is great. The hunting stories are what got me. Thanks for helping get the truth out. I've emailed you previously and I do realize it was massive. A lot went on that first day I put eyes on them. I want to say to the guys that watch them, change like the Predator in the movie, like a chameleon shape-shifting to its environment. Thanks for sharing. It's not a good feeling being told you're crazy for what you've seen. No, it's not, is it? Kind of sucks. The end of my day of encountering them, I had a gut feeling that it was following us out of where we had been hunting. I threw my truck in park, grabbed my rifle, and ran into a trail that cut off the logging road about 200 yards. I got to the end of the trail, and I heard a stick break about 10 yards away to the left of me. I went straight to the sound, and there was the stick broken in a footprint of what I determined to be a juvenile. My friend comes in behind me and says, "Holy shit, that's a Sasquatch track." I said, "Yeah, they're here right now." And I gave my rifle and said I was going to get my camera and the other rifle. And by the time I got back, he was white as a ghost, telling me we had to get out of there. Then we heard something on the hillside and we raised our guns in that direction. And as we did that, a savage roar came directly behind us. My friend says back to back, and we can't seem to see anything. A flock of chickadees blast into the trees, and my bro says to me, "They're in the trees." He was over it, and he said he was going back to the truck and started leaving in a panic. I will add, not a man to easily scare. I was reluctant to leave, and I wanted to see it again. As I began to leave shortly after, my bro got on the trail, and I heard a large snap to my right, now on the same hillside. I turn, raise my rifle, and I see it again, clear as day. And no sooner as I raised the rifle, I lowered it. It had its eyes locked, and it seemed like it lasted forever, but say 5 seconds. Then it began to change colors. You're calling it shade shifting. I think the original term is shape shifting. Call it whatever you want, I don't give a shit. Shade shifting 4 to 5 times until it totally matched the forest. During this time, I could see its goldish eyes, never taking my eyes off of them until it just disappeared. It was like watching the Predator in real life, and I was just standing there thinking, what the hell did I just witness? I've tried to wrap my head around it for years. My advice? Get right back in the bush. They have the ultimate camouflage, so all sense is on at all times now. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for sharing. Thanks all for sharing. That's pretty intense, man. Pretty frickin' intense. If you're still here hanging out with us, and you have seen more, experienced more, get it to me. That is creepier than shit, isn't it? Think about it. That is absolutely ridiculous creepy to witness something like that. And how many people have? How many people have? Intuition, insight, experiences is the title of this email. Good evening, Mr. Steve. I've lived in and around the mountains of western Wyoming since 1990. Aside from 5 years when I served in the Marine Corps as a helicopter mechanic, and 2 years in Nebraska while in college. This region has been home. Before I get too far into things, growing in martial arts and through my experiences in the South while in the military, I was taught to address people rather formally by putting Mr., Miss, or Mrs. in front of their first name, more as a sign of respect to the individual rather than a specific title, as if one in authority. Quick interruption. Well, you're not allowed to do that anymore in Canada. You call somebody Miss or Mrs., you're going to get in trouble. Or Mr. How pathetic is that? Sorry for the interruption. Oh, sounds like my neighbor just dumped a tree. Also, I must say that I enjoy the way that you relay all these encounter stories along with your no BS approach. Thanks, man, but there's no other way to do it, is there? I, for one, cannot say that I have had any type of encounter with a Sasquatch that I'm aware of. However, I have had more than plenty interactions with entities of the paranormal. Everything from hearing muttered voices and footsteps to seeing shadows to near full-body apparitions and even some not so nice, bordering on demonic experiences. Believe me, I have questioned my sanity more than a few times with these experiences. I've been growled at by a mountain lion, had grizzly bears tear apart garbage cans in our driveway, and angry beef cattle charged me on multiple occasions. Mama cows don't like it when someone's trying to field doctor their calves. No, had a handful of those try to climb over the quad to get us while doing that. They're nasty. Last year during elk season, I was tailing a herd of elk into a stand of timber. I entered the trees about 10 minutes after the elk and came across fresh mountain lion tracks on top of the elk tracks I was following in the snow. I'm very happy it took about 10 minutes to reach where the elk entered. The cat could have very easily been tailing me. I've also had experiences with very dark people. Oh man, they just give me the creeps. Don't they? Now, one of the reasons the email. From a very young age, I've had premonition-type dreams in full detail. Kind of like watching a silent film without subtitles. Only to live the dream several days later. Everything from arguments with friends and family to places we would visit on different occasions. I also have a very weird sixth sense. I almost always know when someone or a thing is following me. Or when situations are just not right, like something very bad is about to happen. I have 3 such experiences I want to tell you about. 2 occurred somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years ago, and many of these details I never really gave a second thought to until listening to many of your videos. When we moved west in 1990, my father wanted to give my brothers and I opportunities to meet new friends and experience the woods in ways that his ranching job would not allow him to do. So he signed the 3 of us up for Boy Scouts. We went on many camping, backpacking, and horseback trips all around the Shoshone National Forest outside of Yellowstone National Park, even during the winter. During the spring months, we would go out a few weekends and help conduct eagle surveys. We had a lot of fun. On one backpacking trip, my one brother, 3 friends, and I decided to go exploring down by the river. While there, my brother and 2 friends decided that they would go Rocky Mountain bowling, as we called it, pushing large rocks down off the side of the hill and either see whose rock went the farthest, closest to a certain mark, or made the biggest splash in the water. Oh, the silly things boys do to have fun. We still do it. At any rate, my friend and I decided to go back to camp. I made it down to the edge of the river and just started to cross it when I got an uneasy feeling. I turned around to see my friend trying to make his way down to the river over a pile of rocks that was in front of where we were all just standing not 2 to 3 minutes earlier. I called out to him, saying there was a bit of a game trail just off to his left, a few feet that looked much easier to traverse than all of those rocks. A few seconds later, he was at the edge of the water, at the end of that trail, and boom! A volcanic rock came tumbling out of the brush, hit another volcanic rock that was uphill from where my friend was, and both rocks, probably close to a few hundred pounds, shattered and went tumbling right where he stood no more than 15-20 seconds before. He and I both looked at the dust cloud, back at each other, and we each had that, oh shit, look in our faces. I truly believe that I had ignored that feeling. He would have been seriously injured that day, but it would have likely killed him before we could have gotten him out of the woods, 3 or 4 miles back to the truck and close to 45 miles to the hospital, even with all of our first aid training. The second event happened while we were camping at one of our other favorite spots. There was about 9 of us boys from our troop on this camping trip. The eldest was about 15 and the youngest around 11. We'd gone running through the woods, down some older logging roads and were goofing off playing war or something like that around a staging area for the logging operation that was there several years earlier. It must have been about 3/4 of a mile from camp. We had been out in these woods many times and knew that there were a handful of grizzlies in that area. They were making a bunch of noise, so we were not too worried about having a run-in with a bear. We had been running around playing our game for about 20 minutes or so when the woods went dead silent. We all got that feeling that we were being watched. We started to talk about it, and we did get the whiff of something unpleasant, but none of us could identify it as a bear. And all of a sudden, and without prompting from anyone, we all broke out at a dead run heading back to camp, weaving back and forth behind each other at full speed. Out of the 9 or so of us that were out there, not one of us followed another for more than a few strides before dodging off in another direction. I recall that we talked about it much after we reached camp, and undertaking that must have been near record booked for time due to the terrain, as we all made it back to camp in about 5 minutes, and about a minute from the first to arrive to the last one got there. I just remember that we were all shook up and decided to hang closer to camp for the rest of the day. Obviously, during these camping trips, there were plenty of ghost and goblin type stories told around the campfire. But how could 9 kids all get the urge at the same time to hightail it back to camp without some type of teasing like, the last one is a rotten egg? Again, I can't say it wasn't a bear. As far as I know, none of us saw anything before we all ran. The last happened to me while working for the Forest Service. I was conducting an amphibian survey on some ponds that I could only access with a 4-wheeler. The trails in this area you could drive an ATV down, but were closed to motorized vehicles. While walking around these 4 small ponds, things in the forest were normal. Squirrels running from tree to tree and birds chirping and flying around, normal. So I thought, I've been walking around these ponds slowly looking for frogs, tadpoles and salamanders for some time, kneeling, pushing lily pads around with a stick to see if I could stir anything up and identify it for the biologist I was working for. I don't know for certain how long I was conducting the survey, but I would guess that somewhere around the 1.5 hour mark or so, it had dawned on me that the woods had become silent. It had been silent for some time. Then, the hair on the back of my neck stood up and my radar was on. I knew I was being watched. I decided right there that it was time to go. I had about 1/2 mile walk back to my 4-wheeler. The old roadway that was now the horse and hiking trail had conifer and aspen trees all along it. This gave the trail a tunnel-like feeling. I have a bad ankle from severe sprain that I sustained while in the military, and at the time I could roll my ankle in a smooth tile floor. It was so bad. And all the way back to my 4-wheeler, I kept telling myself not to twist or roll my ankle. Walk with your head up and don't run. I kept looking over my shoulder, but I could never see anything but empty trail behind me. And that was the longest 10 to 15 minute hike out of there that I've ever had. I didn't even stay long enough at the quad when I got to it to put my helmet on. I climbed on, started up, and stopped my helmet on once I was clear from the mouth of that trail with the creek between me and it. We had an issue with mountain lions early that summer. One of the guys that was working on another crew took a picture on his digital camera of a lion track on the side of the dirt road by our cabin. He put his hand next to the track as reference when he took the picture. This guy was a thin-built guy and had the hands of a basketball player, relatively thin with medium-sized palm and long fingers, unlike my bear paw hounds. Unlike my bear paw hands. The track was almost the size of the back of his hand. That was a big cat. This email really kind of goes on, my man. Another guy in the same crew was out in the trail run and was almost jumped by a lion. He was running down a game trail under a cliff face. Just after he got into the clearing, coming back down the trail from the cliff, he said that he saw something long and dusty brown crouched behind some sagebrush about 15 feet in front of him. He said he stopped, picked up a few rocks, and started to beat them together. He said that whatever it was snaked its way away from him through the sagebrush and out of sight before he took off back to the cabin. He said they never got a really good look at it, but it stayed low to the ground and stayed tight to the sagebrush as it moved away. He Told him he was a damn fool for running during twilight hours and damn lucky he saw the motion and stopped. Otherwise, we would have been having that conversation. We wouldn't be having that conversation at the time. The last experience, I believe, was another mountain lion. I know they're very stealthy and you won't see them at all, even if it's too late. I'm just grateful that all my outdoors experience kicked into high gear and I was able to override my borderline panic. That's my experiences for now. I enjoy listening to all these and your hunting stories. Since my paranormal experiences started, I've had more of an interest build up on cryptids and other unknowns of the world. Stay safe out there. I'd stay safe out there. I think you meant in the beautiful wilds of the north. Daryl, L/CLP USMC. Boom. Read and share it, Daryl. There you go. All right. You take a few breathers after that one. Whew. All right, here. This looks like a long one. I'm going in. I mean, into the email. I'm doing it. This is now titled Red. Oops. There we go. All right. 2 generations of sightings in Mississippi. Sounds like a family affair to me. Hello, Steve. My friends call me Big Mark. I love what you're doing for people like me. Keep it up. Thanks, man. No problem. I had completely forgotten about this incident, as if it was erased from my memory. As an adult, I just happened to be looking at a website with Bigfoot recordings. I won't mention the website. You know, those idiots. I'd moved my elderly mother onto our property to take care of her. She was on the couch while I was listening to the recordings. I played the recorded Sasquatch screams from Snohomish, Washington. Steve, I almost passed out. My forgotten memory of over 25 years prior had flooded into my mind, causing intense feelings and chills from my head to my toes. That was it. That's exactly what we had heard that day. My mother asked what I was listening to. Joking with my mom a little bit, I said, "What do you think it is?" Laughing to myself at what her answer would be. Her answer made me almost fall out of my chair. She said, "I know exactly what that is. When I was a child in the 1930s, that thing would come around the house at night during the summertime. It would start screaming and hollering, getting the hunting dogs all worked up. Your grandpa, couple uncles, and a few cousins would get the guns and lanterns and would chase that thing through the woods all around the house." Sorry. I would laugh because this thing was so fast it even outran the dogs. And they thought they could catch it. Holy blank. I was speechless. My encounter took place in December 79 in Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Less than 6 miles away as the crow flies from where my mother had her experiences. I was 10 years old. I need to start out by relaying what we found over a year prior to this incident. My family that lives in this area lives deep in the woods. The nearest neighbor is 2 miles away, and at this time, the nearest paved road was almost 10 miles away. To say they're in the middle of the woods is an understatement. One summer, while me and my 2 cousins were exploring the vast woods around their property, we came across an old abandoned shack. It looked like it had been abandoned for over 100 years. I remember the panes of the glass in the windows being wavy, not smooth. As young boys, our curiosity got the best of us. Since the house looked abandoned, we cautiously went inside. There was only 3 rooms in the house, and I remember in the kitchen it still had the hand pump for the well, where the sink was. What I remember the most about this house was that in the middle of a living room floor, it looked like a giant bird nest. It was made out of limbs and leaves and smelled horrible. When my cousins yelled, "It's a witch's house," and we ran out of there as fast as we could. Now, fast forward to Christmas time in 1979. We were staying several days for Christmas at my uncle's house, which was about 3 miles from the old witch's house through the woods. Upon arrival, my uncle bragged to my dad that he had harvested several deer already this year. He told my dad of a pond about a mile from his house in the woods where deer gather in the evenings. Me and my dad suited up in our hunting gear and set out a few hours before dark to see if we could find any deer. You have to walk down a red clay road following a barbed wire fence a little over half a mile from my uncle's house. When the barbed wire fence turns into woods, you follow it at that point 300 or 400 yards and the pond will be on your left. We made our way to the turning point and followed the fence into the woods, trying to be as quiet as possible. We made it to the pond, but there were no deer in sight. We stayed until almost dark and started making our way back. Thinking back on it now, the woods were eerily quiet. And as we came out of the woods and turned left, following the barbed wire fence down the road again, I began to hear noises on the left side of the road about 30 feet into the woods. My dad was talking and I was trying to focus on him. I kept hearing snaps and cracks of some very large limbs in the woods. Whatever this was sounded big. And after a little while, I began to realize these weren't four-legged steps an animal would make, but they were the steps of a man or something on two legs and would make walking through the woods. And it was stalking us. My dad had noticed it also and put his hand on my chest, forcing us to stop walking. He never said anything, as to not draw attention from our pursuer. But when we stopped, it took one or two more steps, and then it stopped. I then realized whatever this was could clearly see us at 30 feet away, but we couldn't see it. I remember the temperature being in the low teens, but because of my hunting clothes, I was very warm. It wasn't until this very instant that a cold chill ran from my head to my toes, and all of my hair stood straight up. My dad, noticing my obvious fear, leaned down toward me and asked me if I was afraid. I wanted to scream yes. But not wanting to disappoint my dad, I shook my head no. He asked me if I knew how to shoot the gun I was carrying, which was a 12-gauge shotgun loaded with buckshot. Since he taught me to shoot at an early age, the question was more to bolster my bravery than answer his inquiry. I said yes. He asked me if I could hit what I was aiming at. I said yes. He said that I have nothing to be afraid of. Somehow, that did not give me much comfort. We started walking again, several times between there and my uncle's house. We stopped and started. Each time we would stop, whatever this was would stop also. Before you get to my uncle's house, the woods end at an old cornfield. We walked 40 or 50 feet past that point, stopped, turned, and faced the woods with my dad taking the 12-gauge. Whatever this was, walked right up to the wood line and we heard it stop. We could see nothing of the woods but darkness, but knew whatever it was just inside the woods staring back at us. After a minute or two, we turned and made our way back to my uncle's house. My uncle met us outside to inquire if we had any luck. My dad said no and started telling him of this thing following us out of the woods. In the middle of a sentence, this thing started screaming. The only description I can give is of a woman being murdered. Only multiply the volume by 1,000. This thing was well over 100 yards away, and I could feel the volume in my chest. Now to understand my fear, you have to understand who my dad and my uncle were. They were the two men who grew up during the Great Depression. They spent most of their childhood and young adult life hunting in the woods and swamps in Mississippi, with coon hunting at night with lanterns and a single-shot rifle being their idea of fun. As adults, they traveled the world in combat situations for the military. My dad was the biggest, baddest, bravest man I know. My uncle wasn't far behind him. So the thing that scared me was turning to these two men in the middle of this creature screaming and seeing the fear on their faces. They didn't lose their composure for long. My uncle said it must have been a panther that followed us out of the woods. My dad agreed and said we needed to go inside out of the cold. Looking back on it now, I don't believe either one of them believed that was a panther. But they weren't going to tell a 10-year-old boy that monsters are real and one just followed you home. I'll never forget the fear I felt seeing these two men afraid. We never saw what was screaming at us, but we got the message loud and clear. For the rest of the week, while we stayed and visited family, no one else went hunting into the woods. There you go. I don't know why the same email is copied again underneath. So it's not that long. Pretty intense. Man, a lot of people have had that body vibrating scream, huh? I'll guarantee there's nobody here that wants to. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's probably a few you twisted psychos out there want to experience that scream. Not me, I'm good. I'm good. I've heard noises. They're good enough for me. I know they're there. I'm good. What's this? This is titled... Appreciate you sending that in, man, by the way. Sorry if I didn't thank you already. Really appreciate that. Excuse me. Programming system. It's the title of this email. I just want to say thank you for everything you do/done to help who you could. I haven't seen any of these creatures myself. Just one unexplained glowing ring in the sky. But I know they're around, so I'll be quick and detailed. This is a thought about the school system. Since we know they lie and all, they have definitely made it where both parents have to work and no choice but send kids in. Yeah, how pathetic is that? They print new books pretty often. You could easily tweak wording every 3 to 5 years. Now everyone is learning something different. You hear one aunt or cousin say something you think is crazy from what you know. Most people will be nice and not call them out because they're too busy, but plants the, quote, they might be crazy, unquote, seed. Years later, you can't remember exactly what was said, just that seed you planted yourself. This could definitely cause a divide in a family. Could it go deeper to regions teaching something different at the same time? And you move later in life? Your new neighbor is saying things making you question your safety because of sex/race/occupation? Now neighbors calling cops sounding crazy to us from videos recording everything now. What would a population taught lies every 5-ish year look like from videos? Could this be the reason of the chaos certainly happening today? Say my name. I actually have a good friend with the same first and last. Hope everyone's doing good and don't think we will be nuked. And don't think we will be nuked now before you read. Joseph Thomas. P.S. I'm not a writer, so maybe this wasn't too bamboozled. Gotcha, man. Yeah, who knows? Makes sense to me. One thing for certain. The people who want absolute power and control, they have put divide into our families and our communities. They have done it. It's been done intentionally, and they've done a pretty damn good job. Easily proven. Right? And then sadly, 99% of us that know still sit there and gaze like a bunch of window lickers not doing shit about it. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us, right? It's kind of shitty. Who else do we got? So many. So many. All right, here's another one. Puzzle piece suggestion. Hello, Steve. Thanks again for informing us about everyone's experience with no judgment at all. You're welcome. It's too easy. It's too easy. I haven't had a sighting, nor have I had an experience, but I believe everything because of the near identical experiences from people all over the world. Bingo. You asked, how can we know where these beings are to hunt them down? I did. I thought of how these people feel tagged once they have had a Sabe experience. Do they know our frequency or vibration? Because our deep state has had this advanced science since the late 50s. What if they knew how to tune in to the Sabe's frequency or vibration? Remember the guy who supposedly killed and buried one on his land only to have some government people show up asking questions? Or sightings followed by blacked out helicopters circling later? Even people showing up saying, roads closed, turn around. How else can they know? I think, yes, they were able to track these people, either by sound, vibrations, or frequencies. Keep on doing what you're doing. People need to know. Take what you want or leave it, right? You can share my name. I'm Rock Kosky from Pewaukee, Wisconsin. Pewaukee, Wisconsin. Pewaukee. Pewaukee. There you go. I think it's probably a fairly strong possibility. I think. Don't you think? You know, one night we did have I think it was like 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning? 1 or 3, I don't know. Those two numbers ring a bell, but we had a helicopter right over the frickin' trees out here in the valley and right behind the house. 1 or 3 in the morning. No lights, no nothing. Hear it loud and clear. Don't know what the hell it was doing. Having a frickin' clue. Headed down towards the river and then up the river. The river where a lot of locals say, you want to see a Sasquatch, go walk the frickin' Stamp River. There's another one titled Security Work. Please leave my name out. I'm still working the same security company. Gotcha. 2018 November, about 9 p.m. I was doing security rounds at a remote storage facility. Fenced in on 2 sides with a gated vehicle entrance on the northwest corner. Only lights at the gate. I was driving to the northeast end of the facility. As I arrived at a tool shed I needed to check, I noticed a subject approaching to the front left of my vehicle, moving towards the tool shed. I stopped my vehicle, reached for my flashlight, and opened my door to exit the vehicle. At the same moment, I was overtaken by a very strong odor. At the same time, I had a very clear view of what I had a hard time making sense of what I was looking at. There were a large pipe to my left and storage building to my right. I was within 20 feet of this subject. I looked down at my duty belt and reaching for my weapon, and I didn't pull it out. When I looked back, the subject was out of sight. I don't know if it went to my right or to the north towards the woods. Then I thought to myself, what are you doing? This thing is big. Reddish brown hair, at least 6 to 7 feet tall, very broad shoulders, and very bad odor. I moved back toward my vehicle and never reached my weapon again. I had to look like a lighthouse going to my vehicle. The smell was still heavy in the air. For some reason, I never felt threatened. I was scared. It seems it was more interested in just moving away from me. I'm a good security person. I've made arrests on this same property and do my job well. I'm not stupid. I don't drink or do drugs. I know what I saw. I don't want to see this being again. I still work this area and still do the job well. No doubt, my man. There's no doubt you do it good. Shit, I'm going to sneeze. No doubt. There is no doubt you do your job well. And I'm super glad you shared that experience here. And don't be surprised if it happens again, right? And I get that you don't want to admit that publicly because the who knows what kind of douchebags might be in the position to kick your ass out of there if you speak that kind of truth, right? And then it'd be kind of shitty not have a job. But I wonder who else has seen that in the same zone. Probably somebody. Probably somebody. But there you go. That's it for emails for this one. But I need to take up a topic. It's not that cool of a topic, but somebody's got to do it. You know me. I'll volunteer myself up to bring it up. But I was listening. I took Ruby into the woods, and when we turned around to head back, I had enough service, and I put an earbud in one ear, hit play on the PBD podcast, and these guys they're pretty slick individuals, very intelligent. The guy that runs it is Paul Bet David guy. That guy is sharp, very successful, very. That guy doesn't need any more money. That's a guarantee. But I do believe that he would not crack open a topic on his channel unless it was vetted 50 times over from all directions. I would put money on that one. So, that being said, he brought on a woman who was allegedly a sex traffic survivor by those disgusting one percenters. Now, don't be changing the channel away yet. Sit there and stick this out with me for a minute, alright? Because it's important. Now, she made some pretty bold claims. Apparently she has a book out. She's a survivor. Her mother. Again, these are going to be dark topics from here till the end of the video, just so you know. Pre-warned. Very dark topics, alright? But they got to be brought out to the open. Now, she was basically facilitated trafficked by her mother. She's a young child. I know that sounds hard to believe, but I have another story that's directly relating to that from a friend of mine in Michigan. His best friend is a cop and told him a story of the same thing. Anyway, there's some dark shit in the planet. You can't turn your eye away. Don't turn away. Listen to this. Don't be a pussy. Now, because these poor girls couldn't turn away, all right? But they get to share the story. So don't turn away from these people's stories. Because they couldn't turn away when they were children. Now, she was trafficked to the elite. Turns out, she was trafficked to some very prominent political people around the globe. The Prime Minister of Belgium. Some billionaire that apparently we all know who it is. He's dead now from the U.S. Got a lot of stories about him. She's not ready to come forward with that name yet, but she's going to. She also came forward with the fact that our criminal in charge, the Trudeau loser, she named his father as one of the perpetrators in the club. And what her job was, they were grooming her to be a whatever it's going to be called. They were grooming her to become a they're grooming her in mind manipulation, how to spy, and she was to remember and take down information of these individuals for her handler. Excuse me. You really need to listen to the podcast, all right? You really need to listen to it. Anyway, the short clip that I listened to while driving, they told her that she would not be able to please Pierre Trudeau. She would be able to. Because he wanted to kill a child. Sounds pretty harsh. Darker than dark. But what I'm getting at is, especially lately, and bravo for Paul Bet David to come forward with this story. Good on him. Right? He's not scared. And a lot more people are becoming unafraid to speak truth. But here's my question. Here's what frustrates me. I remember one point in my life being a very good hunter, not scared of anything, and I don't give up, and no family. I thought, man, and being aware of a lot of dark, dirty sons of bitches on the planet, I was almost thinking, holy shit, I could actually make a business of this if I just went underground and went around the world fixing things, right? Going after bad guys. And I was seriously thinking about that at one stage in my younger years. Way too much testosterone, right? Maybe I should have. But anyway, when I share, I give people heads up things every once in a while on this channel, little tidbits here and there, right? And when I do, it's because I strongly feel these subjects that I might try to tip off to you guys need attention. And it's a little sad and frustrating in a way, because I have noticed that when I do share something like that video that I share on the community page, maybe 2 people will comment. Maybe 40 people will put the thumbs up on it. Like, what are you guys doing? What are you scared of? You can't just turn away like that, you guys. You can't just go, oops, uh-oh. We got a woman who survived being raped as a child by some of our leaders. Oh, I don't want to touch this one. I'm just going to go away. I'm not going to share this link. I'm not going to comment with a thumbs up or down. I'm not going to comment at all. I'm just going to go, oh shit, Steve, what are you sharing that for? And I'm going to slink away. Quit it. This is the channel of the brave. The honest, the brave are here. And we help, we protect, and we fight back. That's what we do. That's our theme here, man. That's our team song, our team theme. You come across somebody, a survivor especially, who has a story to tell, holy shit. Give them the respect and chance to share that story. Don't look away. You know? Don't look away. There's a pattern there. You know, like I always say before, when it comes to the topic that's been dominating this channel about these hairy people that we know are running around amongst us somehow, how many testimonies does it take for it to be factual for you? Right? And that can be applying facts or skills of these people or just the fact they exist. How many testimonies do you need for that to be factual? How many testimonies do you need to convince you that they smell like rotting, decaying flesh? Okay? Easy example. How many testimonies do you need, different ones, before you will accept the fact that they are possibly 10 or 12 feet tall? How many testimonies do you need before you accept that as fact? Now, how many testimonies do you need of people who have been raped and trafficked by our leaders? How many testimonies do you need to take that in as factual? Because they're there. The numbers are there. The survivors are there. The stories are there. The patterns are there. And there is a shit pile of this information coming out non-stop. But the majority of us are turning away and looking away. Why are you doing that? Don't be a pussy. Protect the children. Stand up and fight. You count, you got a voice, and you own the power. All right? If you don't got the guts to acknowledge that topic and me sharing it online, share it with somebody who does at least. All right? Don't turn away. It's like my superhero ladies. One of my superhero ladies, she love her dearly. She has I don't know what to call it. Gathering a bunch of people. She invites me for support. I go. And she, through her artwork, shares exactly what these monsters did to her and other children, including murder. A lot of people look away. Not too many people show up. It needs some light. These people need to be heard. You know what I mean? Anyway, maybe I'm babbling along a little too much. Maybe I'm not. I'm probably not babbling too much when it comes to this shit. Because, no, I am. I'm down, man. I am absolutely down. I'm down to lead the good guy army. I'll do whatever it takes. These people need to be stopped. They need to be exposed. And quality of life for us as a community needs to get better. Agreed? And a lot of people are going to go, oh, what can I do? What can I do about it? Well, you can listen. You can pass the story on. You can hit the share button or some damn thing and share that story. Make sure people hear it. That's what you can do. That's what you can do, all right? Don't look away. Don't look away. All right? Don't look away. Make sure these stories are heard loud and clear. As far as we get the stories, make sure they're heard. You know? But from the evidence that is being delivered to us really often, am I convinced that the elite are in a club when it comes to being possibly in the position of a global leader? You bet your effing ass there is. You bet your ass there is. Do they need to be exposed? Oh, do they ever? How? How do you deal with them? Any way possible. Legally, probably isn't going to work, but I won't hold my breath. You know my stance on how it should be dealt with. The people need to rise up, put these people in cans, and slow cook them. Right? Anyway, there you go. There's my rant at the end. How do I motivate everyone? How do I motivate the world to look and listen and make sure these stories are heard? How do I do that? You know, how do I do that? I think after we get out of here, I'm going to find the full video of that podcast with this woman exposing these dirty sons of bitches, these world leaders, rapists, pedophile, slimy animals. They need to be shot and put down. Or burnt slowly, whatever you want. Okay, there you go. There's my message. There's my words of encouragement. And don't think this will be the last time I mention it. Right? Get on it. And if you do look away, I'm going to shame your ass. I'm going to call you out and call you a pussy if you look away. Alright? We don't like pussies here. Brave, honest, fearless people. That's who's here. Let's get it going. There you go. Share my story at howtohunt.com. Keep an eye on the community page. I'm going to be sharing shit there that needs to be seen and heard, alright? Okay. Later.